will be relegated from the Premier League in the upcoming 23-24 season. Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. Today we are having an early look at the Premier League 23-24 season and which teams might be involved in the relegation battle and which three teams will be going down to the Championship. Before we get into this video today, guys, and go through all of the teams that could be involved, please do show some support for more Premier League content by hitting that like button. We'll go for 400 likes on this video, so please be sure to hit that like button down below. And also make sure to hit the subscribe button while you're there, show some support and subscribe to the channel for more Premier League content as well. So then, in the most recent Premier League season of 22-23, we saw all three newly promoted sides stay in the division. If that season taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected. We saw Leeds United get relegated after 3 years in the top flight. We saw Southampton get relegated after being in the top flight for 11 consecutive seasons. And we saw Leicester City relegated 7 years after winning the Premier League. Let's quickly go through all of the Premier League teams chunk by chunk and see what their chances are of going down this season. Let's start with the bookmakers' 7 favourites for this upcoming Premier League season. The so-called Big Six: Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham and Newcastle have joined that gang as well. They're the bookmakers' 7 favourites coming into this season, and I'd put them down in a surely not category. Obviously in the Premier League anything could happen, but surely these 7 teams won't be involved. But it's not impossible. We did see Chelsea finish in 12th place and have a really poor end to the season. They'll be feeling optimistic with Pochettino coming into this season, so there is a very strong chance we shouldn't see any of these 7 in the Premier League relegation battle at all next season. But like I say, who called Leicester City going down after they'd finished 8th the previous season? Let's have a little look at the next 3 teams I've highlighted then: Aston Villa, Brighton and Hove Albion and West Ham United. Now these 3 teams will all be in European competitions coming into this season. Could that distract them from having a good Premier League campaign this time round? There's no doubt about it. Brighton did brilliant to finish 6th, Aston Villa did fantastic under Emery to finish 7th, and West Ham, what a job to win the Europa Conference League. But we did see with West Ham a little regression in the Premier League campaign last year as they went so far in that European competition. Could a European campaign distract these 3 teams in the Premier League next season and suck them further down the table? That's certainly not impossible. I don't think any of these 3 will go down, but obviously I must highlight it's not a mathematical impossibility. Let's move on to 3 more teams I've highlighted, the mid-table Londoners. We saw Brentford, Fulham and Crystal Palace finish in 9th, 10th and 11th in the Premier League last year. The bookmakers have these 3 teams to be clear of the Premier League relegation battle again this season, but as we'll go on to see later in the video, many teams in the Premier League have finished mid-table one season and gone straight down to the relegation zone the next. So not impossible that one of these 3 teams could get sucked down the table. We'll go on to see in the season, I guess. Let's move down to 4 teams that got over the line last season: Wolves, Everton, AFC Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest. All 4 of these were involved in the Premier League relegation battle at some point last season. Everton stayed up on the final day. AFC Bournemouth are the only team out of these 4 that the bookmakers are tipping for relegation before the season has even started. I don't know how much you can read into that. They did tip Bournemouth to go down last year and they went on to prove them wrong. But once again, as you'll see in a minute's time in this video, many teams have just avoided the drop one season and then gone down the next. And finally, let's move on to the new boys: Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton Town, all promoted to the Premier League last season. They'll be trying to take inspiration from the 3 teams that stayed up after being promoted last season: Nottingham Forest, Fulham and Bournemouth, all staying up in the same season. History will tell us that on average 1 or 2 teams tend to go down out of the 3 new teams to the Premier League. I suppose it's up to your interpretation for which order you think these 3 teams will finish in the Premier League this season. Burnley are the only team that the bookies are tipping to stay up out of the new boys, but like I say, they tipped all 3 newly promoted sides last season to go back down and they all stayed up, so they proved the bookmakers wrong, so we won't read into that too much. As you're about to see in the next bit of the video, history tells us that on average 1 or 2 of the newly promoted sides go back down, but like I say, last season all 3 newly promoted sides stayed up. So then in this table beside me, which is stretched out over the last 10 years, you'll see where the relegated sides finished the season season before. So for example, in 2023, Leicester City got relegated. The season before, they'd finished 8th in the Premier League. Southampton also went down. The season before, they'd finished in 15th, and Leeds United went down. The season before, they'd finished in 17th. What is interesting with this table is you can see twice over the last 10 years, all three newly promoted sides have stayed up. There's been a few occasions where two have gone back down. In 2022 and in 2021, two sides that had come up from the Championship the season before went straight back down alongside one team that had finished somewhere in the Premier League the season before. What is interesting though with this table over the last 10 years, you can see there's been no occasion where three teams have come up and all gone back down. At worst, for the newly promoted sides, two sides have gone back down. There's been 3 seasons where one team has gone back down, and as I say, there's been 2 seasons where all 3 have stayed up. So then if we tally up where those teams had finished, you can see one team had finished 8th in the season before and gone back down, that being Leicester City. One team had finished 9th, one team had finished 10th and then gone straight down the next season. 2 teams have finished 11th in the Premier League and been relegated the next season over the last 10 years. The 3 most common teams to get relegated over the last 10 years had finished the season before in 2nd in the Championship, as playoff winners in the Championship, or had just finished 17th in the Premier League. If that was to be the case this season, that would see Everton, Sheffield United and Luton Town relegated. Another thing I wanted to look at is something people call second season syndrome, which I think is a phrase which is actually overused. As you can see looking at this table beside me now, teams that have survived their first season in the Premier League following promotion from the Championship tend to do okay in their second season. For example, the only team that stayed up after being promoted in 2021, Brentford, went on to finish 9th in the Premier League last year. Leeds United, who were promoted in 2020, did stay up in their second season in 2022. 2 of the 3 sides that came up from the Championship in 2019 stayed up in their first season. 1 of them went down in their second season. The other, Aston Villa, finished 11th. What is interesting with this table over the last 9-10 years or so is that teams that have won the Championship and stayed up in their first season tend to do quite well in their second season. 17th place, 7th place, 13th place, 7th place, 9th place and 1st place. So no team over the last 9 or 10 years that have won the Championship have gone down in their second season. That looks like a good omen for Fulham. As for AFC Bournemouth going into their second consecutive season in the Premier League, 2 of the 4 sides that have stayed up previously have gone back down. So there is a 50% success rate for the teams that have finished second in the Championship that stay up in their first season going into their second season. So for AFC Bournemouth, maybe not as good an omen as Fulham have got, but there is hope that they could stay up of course again. And as for Nottingham Forest, who were the playoff winners in the Championship in 2022, they can take inspiration for the fact that 3 out of the 4 sides that stayed up in their first season also stayed up in their second season. So there's a 75% success rate over the last 9-10 years that the playoff winners from the Championship that survive in their first season then survive in their second season. So then guys, those tables I just showed you show you some of the maths and the history of the Premier League relegation battles over the last few seasons. It's a bit of fun, but what does any of it actually mean? Well, like I say, out of the 30 teams in the last 10 seasons promoted to the Premier League from the Championship, 13 of them go down. So then as a decimal, that means out of the 3 teams coming up to the Premier League, the history tells us on average 1.7 out of 3 stay up. So there's a good chance 2 will stay up. Like I say, last season and twice over the last 10 years, we've seen all 3 stay up. The maths is telling me there's a good chance 2 teams will stay up and 1 will go down. So then as a bit of an early estimate, what I think will happen this season is 1 of the 3 newly promoted sides will go down. It's up to you which team you think that'll be, but I think 1 of them will go down and 2 of them will stay up. I think 1 of the 3 teams that stayed up will go down in their second season and 2 of them will stay up again. And I also think we're going to get 1 team that could be a bit of a surprise, or a team that's been in the Premier League for quite some time, go down this time. So then guys, do feel free to comment down below which 3 teams you think will be relegated. It's certainly hard to do, but the grim reality of it is 3 teams do go down. Who will it be? Let me know down in the comments, guys. If you've enjoyed this video, please do make sure, of course, to hit that like button. Do make sure, of course, to subscribe. We can maybe talk about the Premier League relegation battle again next week, and we'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.